All right, part 4. How do we fix our brain? So in this video, I want to focus on practical ways that you can keep your brain in top-notch condition. Because right now, the crisis that we have now is that we are doom scrolling, we're using AI, we're using social media, we're doing all these things that is keeping our brain in this cruise control mode, that if you stop exercising your mind, it's gonna go to mush. If you don't use it, you're gonna lose it. Point blank, you're gonna lose it. If you think about the fact that dementia and Alzheimer's is one of the biggest things that arise in older people, now add the ramifications of AI. And we're going in blindly, not knowing what lies ahead. Because the way we're heading right now, we are relying so much on technology that it's not even funny. It ought to give you some sense of, whoa, I need to do something about this organ that I have in my head. God-given organ. God intentionally gave us a brain so we can use it and not lose it. And so in this video, I want to help you and give you some ideas of what you can do to keep your brain in top-notch condition. You know, anyone can do it. Anyone can practice these things, and it's just to, you know, not lose that sense of critical thinking. That's my theme here. Critically think, and even help kids critically think, because in the system that we're in right now, we use Chromebooks a lot, and I personally don't like that. But that's the state that we're in, because since COVID, a lot of students have been doing things online. And then we have, of course, in college, a lot of kids use ChatGPT or Chatty, you know? So if you are going in cruise control towards the future, we are relying more and more on these robots. And don't get me wrong, I love robots. I do. I used to do robotics. And what I want you to know here is that AI is a code to simulate a person. And more people are starting to idolize AI. And yes, there are good things and bad things about AI. Good things, it can, you know, make work easier. It makes some tasks easier than others. But if we start to rely on AI for every single thing, then that's where the problem is. There is a double-sided coin to everything. There's two sides to the coin. It just depends on how you use it. And that's the same thing that I say about social media. It depends on how you use it. Again, with AI is the same way. Let me take you back to 1998, just to give you a perspective of how I personally got into, or I think any 90s kid got into technology. I remember my dad bringing up this whole big box computer into our household, and I'm like, what the heck is this? What is this? And immediately, you know, the internet and playing all these games. And there was one point where there was a thunderstorm, and so the motherboard blew off, and it was really cool to connect all the little circuits in the motherboard. And then eventually getting into like typing class in 5th grade. I remember clearly, it was 2001, and I was in computer class, and then the principal comes in, and I was like on a streak with my typing. And then she says, there's been an attack. And then my parents picked me up. And then ever since then you have the whole Y2K crisis, and a lot of high alert security on like internet breaches and data breaches or whatever it is. And my introduction to internet was a bit like, whoa, a little bit alarming. And so looking back and seeing the state that we're in now, how the internet has evolved in such a way that it's like, I would have never thought. If you were to go back in time into the 1900s and you were to tell these people that in 100 years you're going to have this device that you can talk to and talk to someone on the other side of the world But then even now with AI, the plethora of things that you can do is pretty insane. And so, you know, I have a love-hate relationship with technology. Yeah. Anyways, can you please stop cutting the grass? Also, I hope you can hear me. The neighbor's cutting the grass, but I don't have my microphone, so just bear with me. At least we have a beautiful sunset, right? All this to say, AI does not have a conscience. Please. All right. We're facing something unknown. We're facing something that can be a little bit ominous, because when we rely on something that's other than God, then it raises red flags. And the way I see it, AI is starting to raise some red flags, because a lot of people are starting to misuse it, and they're starting to rely on it, and they're starting to idolize it. Even like, okay, so if you have a question, I always say Google it, because Google gives you a plethora of websites. Like back in the day, we didn't even have Google, right? We used to just look into books. And that's the thing. We're losing the art of reading for something superficial, and we're getting summarizations of books that we should be reading. And that's the scary part. A lot of people are starting to get answers through quick responses, because in the end, we're a really rushed generation that wants something so quickly that we don't even look into the depths of any concept, because we want something quick and we want to be seen as experts of everything. That is what I call the Dunning-Kruger effect, where, in my own words, the more confident someone is, the less competent they could be. And I'm not saying, okay, maybe not. Sometimes people become experts at something, but they become so confident in their knowledge and expertise in something that's when you know that they're not competent enough to know it. But the thing is, the people that know the stuff know that they don't know everything. In fact, there's a lot of philosophers, scientists in the past that said that the more they knew, the less they know. In fact, Aristotle said, the more I know, the less I know. Something along those lines. Isaac Newton said, what we know is a drop of the ocean. Werner Heisenberg, my favorite physicist, he said, not only is the universe stranger than we think, it's stranger than we can think. Who can know the mind of God? We don't know. Nobody knows. And so, you know, in this rushed society of AI where we want to know things like that, it can be very detrimental to the fact that people are losing the love for learning and researching and diving into topics to where it's more than the superficial. I personally don't consider myself an expert. I'm not afraid to say that I don't know. I do not know much. I honestly don't. I always say, my disclaimer is, I'm only passionately curious. And the love for, I consider myself a lifelong learner. And, you know, it's a lot. In other words, the Dunning-Kruger, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right, but you don't want to be and relying only on AI. Don't get me wrong, AI gives you all this information, but where's the love for books, for actually reading some books, opening up a page, watching these documentaries? There's more to it than just going on the superficial end of knowledge, if that makes sense. You know, and that's what we're losing with AI. We're losing that sense of learning. We're losing that sense of awe and curiosity. We're losing that sense of slowing down and actually chewing on it, savoring it, savoring the fact that with every layer that you dive into, there's another world to it. And we lose that sense of awe when we just rely on just that, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm making sense, but we won't know everything. We won't know everything with just a simple click. You know, scientists back then didn't have internet, didn't have computers, didn't have anything. Some of them didn't even have books. And that's what I like to do with my own kids, is that if they, let's say, if James asks, why is the sky blue? Well, why do you think? Why is the grass green? Well, what do you think? Why? Why do you think? Before I tell you, let me ask you, and use your brain to figure it out, and use your imagination and see, what do you think? What do you think? And that's what I like to do with my students. Socratic questioning. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that could be? Instead of a world of just giving you answers, why don't you find out? Where's the fun of finding out? There's a lot of fun. There's a lot of fun in finding things out slowly. Personally, I like the chase. I like the chase of learning and diving into some things that, like, it's like a lot of presents instead of just once. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense. But anyways, I can be a little passionate about learning stuff. But that's the thing I have against AI. It's that AI is making things less authentic. You know, we don't become experts overnight. When we really want to dive into something, we watch documentaries, we watch interviews, we listen to podcasts, we read books, we talk to people, we ask questions. There's a lot that comes with learning than just a click of a button. That is my point here, you know? And the fact is, I consider myself a lifelong learner. At this point, I'm not an expert. I'm not going to pretend that I know everything. That is not it. I am driven by curiosity. We don't even have the brains to figure out the whole depth of the universe. Richard Feynman. I love Richard Feynman. But let me read you the quote. He said, "I think it's much more interesting to live not knowing than to have answers which might be wrong." You know? And that's the beauty of everything of this. Again, I say, it goes back to the Bible. It goes back to Scripture. Who can know the mind of God? His ways are higher than our ways. And that is the beauty of mystery. In fact, that's Einstein said that. There's beauty in mystery. There is. And that's what I'm drawn to it. I'm drawn to the unknown. And so, what's the point of knowing everything? You know? I don't know. I personally think that AI removes that spark of learning, you know? Don't get me wrong, again, AI can be used for good things. I personally use it for synonyms because I'm the type of person that likes to use the perfect words to convey what I'm trying to say, you know, like I've said before, you know. But one thing okay, let me tell you this, okay. The irony that I see here with AI, and again, this video is about how do we fix our brains, but I'm going off the deep end on this part with AI because I do have an issue with it. Okay, the irony that I have with AI is that a lot of people that consider themselves agnostic or atheist or don't believe in a God, they are relying on the supercomputer. And yes, this supercomputer is super intelligent. Yeah, sure. It's more intelligent than a human being. Sure. Okay. But who created this AI? Who put the codes in for this AI? Human beings, right? So tell me why these people that don't believe in a higher being are relying more on a man-made thing than this that was not man-made. Yet somehow it came from a primordial soup, all at once, randomly, and it got together and evolved into this brain. Tell me where that makes sense. You know, David Hume, he was a philosopher, hardcore atheist. He said, if we know the parts, then we don't need the whole. If we have 50-50, we don't need the 100, because we got 50-50. Stephen Hawking said something similar. If we know the theory of everything, we don't need a creator. If we know all of science, we don't need a creator. In fact, his last book was called Brief Answers to Deep Questions, something along those lines. That was his last book because he died that same year. Stephen Hawking, hardcore atheist, hardcore adamant in not believing in a God. And in that book, he said he wanted to remove a creator. What's the need? There's no afterlife. No. You know, and that's the thing we're heading with AI. A lot of people are relying on AI and not relying on the founder of all. And that's the scary part, because a lot of these people are relying on a man-made thing that not even, if you look at the logic, man-made thing, brain made that man-made thing. That is another brain, but it's run off code. We have a code. It's called DNA. It is not made from man. We are made in the image of God. Where is the logic there? Rationalize that. How is it that... Oh, gosh. Okay. I'm not bashing agnostics and atheists, but just the concept of how is it that you're going to believe and rely on this man-made thing, but you're not believing in a creator that made you in the image of God with a DNA code in a brain with intricate details that you can't even comprehend. And oh my gosh, I get so riled up. Dios mío, cálmame por favor, porque si no me voy a volver loca. Okay, so-called intellectuals. I'm sorry. Again, last thing about AI before I go into how we fix our brains. You know, a lot of people are relying on AI too because it seems like it has a conscience, but it does not have a conscience. It does not. It doesn't have qualia like we do. We can sense things. We can use our emotions. We can use everything. But if you talk to an AI thing, it's not gonna. It's geared. It's coded to have a pattern recognition. You're not speaking to a human being. Even though it simulates it, it's not. It is not. And so that's the thing here that we must be cognizant and wary of. Again, topic of this video. If you don't use it, you're going to lose it. And I'm losing it now because I'm going crazy. I'm sorry. It's so hot outside. Anyways. Well, let's get to it. How do we fix our brains? Let me tell you about it. Un momento, por favor. Okay, so I wrote these down. It's going to be brief. Okay, so bear with me. Don't know how long this is going to be, but I told myself it's going to be less than 10 minutes, maybe. I don't know. Jigsaw puzzles. Classic jigsaw puzzles. They were created in 1760. I'm going to read from my notes. So jigsaw puzzles were actually originally maps. You know, back in the day where explorers were exploring the globe, because it is a globe, they would cut out these pieces of maps and then they're like, oh, this looks pretty cool. Let's learn some geography by putting it together. And so we got jigsaw puzzles back in the 1700s. And so jigsaw puzzles is a really good way of making your brain remember things. It helps with memory. It calms your mind with not overthinking because you're searching for something, you're searching for pieces. And so it also helps with just pointing out and focusing on pieces, you know? So jigsaw puzzles, go for it. They're like $5 at Five Below, so just grab one. And there's some at Walmart too, you know, 1,000 pieces, 300 pieces, whatever it may be, even at Dollar Tree. Go get one and start practicing, start using it, you know. We have crosswords, it's hot, and word search. You know, we can use these, not only for a fan, but we can use it to search for words. Actually introduced in 1913, so it's fairly recent. If you call the 1900s recent, this actually strengthens vocabulary and language comprehension because you're searching for words, but at the same time you're learning new words and you're like, hey, you're getting exposed to new words. So this is a pretty practical way of not only building your vocabulary, but also helping your memory. And you can find these at HEB. You know, on the checkout line, I always find these and they're pretty cool. Even, you know, my son actually did some of them already. Anyone can do it. And this is not rocket science. Anyone can do it, and this is enough for your brain to have that little challenge in the morning, So there's that. Since we're talking about vocabulary, there's this app. There's a lot of apps that give you a new vocab word every day. So I recommend that if you want to build your vocabulary, or just read a book. Classic way to do that, right? Rubik's Cube. I did not bring my Rubik's Cube, and I personally am not a big fan of it because I don't think it challenges you. Because these days, these kids, all they do is these formulas where they just move it in certain ways, and that's how they do it, because it's a formula that you get to memorize. But yes, it could be a challenge of memorization if you want to go that route. Rubik's Cube wasn't invented until 1974, and it's named after Erno Rubik. Algorithms that help you solve it. So it's more like a memory game, So if you're into that, go for it. I personally am not a big fan of it, but a lot of people are into it, especially fifth graders. They're like, oh look, Ms. Vasquez, I can do this in less than 1 second or less than a minute. I'm like, whoa, that's impressive. It actually is impressive, but it's not my cup of tea. But still, it's something good for your brain. It's memory. So tangrams. Now, these are very practical ways to keep your kids entertained, because it not only it gives them a chance to be creative and making shapes. I don't know if you like to watch the clouds. I do. Oh my gosh, it's a beautiful sunset right now, honestly. But if you ever lay down on the grass and look up and see all these clouds form shapes, it's kind of a similar thing, similar concept. You use your mind to build creativity. And so these are pretty cool. These are called tangos, and this is just a physical, it's a puzzle. Essentially, it's a puzzle. And so these were actually invented in 1960 AD, so right after Christ. So whenever the reformers, or maybe not even then, but whenever the early church were probably, building up the church, they're like, hey, let's do some tangrams too. Anyways, I don't know if that was kind of recent to Jesus's ascension, but anyways, it's kind of like tessellations. If you ever remember doing tessellations in art, whenever you have an index card and you cut part of it and then you flip it and then you use a pattern, it's mostly like a pattern too. So I think it's pretty cool. It goes with constellations too. If you like to watch clouds, I definitely like to cloud gaze, but I mostly love to stargaze. And you can see these constellations, and it's pretty cool. Whenever you look up in the sky, you see all these shapes pop out to you. And in fact, back in the day, that's what the people used to use. Instead of maps, they used to use the stars to navigate. Jesus, star, Bethlehem, born, done. And then we have all these other constellations where they tell stories of Orion and the Pleiades, and everything is so beautiful how everything connects, and how God just ordained everything with shapes and the geometry of everything. And I can go on forever. I'm such an I love it. It's in nature. Okay, I just love it. God is so good. God is so good. Oh gosh, it all connects. There's beauty around that. I just wish people could appreciate our Father, our Creator, our Maker, our Savior. Okay, word search. Okay, I already talked about word searches. Word searches. These were actually invented in 1968, and so these are pretty simple. Just like the crosswords and the everything else, it builds vocabulary. Go for it. My foot's falling asleep. We also have, this helps with pattern recognition, and I'm sorry, my foot's falling asleep. It also helps with visual scanning and focus. So doing these word searches, it's a pastime that relaxes you, and again, it helps your brain. Visual scanning and focus, my man. Done. Okay, next up we have fractal geometry. Now this one, I'm a big fan of the golden ratio, or in other words, the Fibonacci sequence. If you look at the galaxy spirals or seashells, or even an embryo, whenever it's starting to develop, again, I say God is so good with his geometry. Oh my gosh. There is shapes, there's patterns in nature. And so this book, and anything like fractal geometry, a lot of people like to color and You know, it's a nice pastime. It's like patterns, it's shapes. And, you know, you don't necessarily have to solve things like puzzles to help your brain, but even just looking at a pattern, it kind of emphasizes your brain's ability to recognize patterns, you know, to put it simply. I did in nature. So, yeah. Tetris. Okay. So everybody knows the game. Okay. So every time we travel, Lewis likes to play that song because I'm really good at putting everything together in the back. Because I'm really OCD like that. I put all our luggage in perfect places. Even I use the girl math. He's like, that's not gonna fit. I'm like, I'm gonna make it fit, and it fits because I can fit things in perfect places like that. So Tetris helps with that, and I like Tetris because it not only challenges you with the time, but also problem solving and switching the pieces to where it fits perfectly in that place. And so Tetris was actually invented by the Russians, Mother Russia. I always say Mother Russia because technically my mother line is actually traced back to Serbia, so I'm technically a little bit Russian. A little bit, just slightly, from my mom's side. But they were invented by the Soviet Union, and so I do enjoy a good game of Tetris. It's basic puzzle, 80s. Why not? It's pretty great. Okay, here's another one. Brain teasers, and riddles. Okay, brain teasers and riddles are really good for your brain. Why? Because it makes you think. Because it makes you critically think. And you know who was the best at this? Parabellum. This individual made people think so deep, but it was so good, and even stumped the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And he used parables. My man, Jesus. He spoke in such a way that made you mic drop. And this was essential to his teaching. And that's what I love. And that's what I like. Oh my goodness. It's so amazing. Nowadays we have riddles and brain teasers, but it's kind of the same kind of wave. Make you think outside the box. It's like metaphorical reasoning. Okay? Parables. Ay, Dios mío. Can't pronounce things. I'm sorry. I'm not good at pronouncing. I'm not good at spelling. So the way that Jesus spoke forced your brain to have that metaphorical language. But the way he spoke, it required you to reflect. It required you to reflect upon your life, and it even convicted you. And that's the beauty of the Bible. It has parables by Jesus, and the whole point of it is to make you reflect on your life, you know? And it engaged you in deeper logic and emotional and logical reasoning. And that's the beauty of how Jesus spoke. He spoke in parables. And so that was something for your brain to chew on. Food for thought. Talk about food for thought. Food for the soul. Yeah. My man, Jesus Christ. Laying it down. Making our brains think. Since day one. God is good. God is good. I love that. All right. Now, this other game, or puzzle, I mean, I would say it's my all-time favorite. You know, here's another one. And this one prompted me to start a club because I noticed that some of these kids are not good planners. They're sore losers, and they don't recognize patterns, and they don't know that their next move can affect everything. And I'm like, you know what? These kids need some skills. And so the beautiful thing about chess is that that's what it does. I fell in love with chess recently, actually, and now I'm addicted to it. In fact, I'm on chess.com like I'm so into the puzzles that it's becoming second nature. Now I lose, and that trips me up because I've thrown my phone across the wall. Oh, I kid you not. But it is such a great game. It helps with memorization. It helps with problem solving. There's a plethora of things that chess helps with that now it makes sense that these, I guess, old folks home, they have these chess boards. In fact, at libraries, they have that too. Why? Because it's quiet. And it works out your brain in such a way that you're like, whoa, you know? And every piece has a strategic move. And it's all about strategy, you know? And I've realized that these concepts that we have on these 64 squares can be also used outside of the board, because every move that you make can blunder or make you win the end game. It's all about making the right move. It's almost like checkers, which, by the way, I'm not a big fan of checkers because I don't really play it. But I know it's something similar, right? Where you just move the pieces, but only once. Now these pieces, the beauty of this is that each piece, the rook, the knight, the bishops, the queen, the king, they all have specific ways of moving across the board. And that's what makes it thrilling, because you can't make a move unless you think about the other opponent's move. And in a way, you're getting inside their head. That's the way it is. And that's the thrill of it, because you can get in people's heads. And chess is such a game. Such a mind game. It's been scientifically proven to reduce the risk of Alzheimer's and dementia. And so I highly recommend a game of chess, you know, because it has so many benefits. And kids can learn them at a very young age. My daughter, she's only 3, but she already knows how to display the boards, the pieces on the board. Now James is teaching her how to play chess, and it's pretty cute to see, because, you know, eventually I'm hoping that they don't lose the love for chess, because it's such a classic game. And the kids, my students, they love it too. And it's such a classic game that doesn't need technology. And that's the beauty of it, you know? The lights go off, power goes out, thunderstorm, boom, let's play a good game of chess. Let's just do it, you know? It's what's interesting about this is that chess was originally made for battle. It was like a battalion kind of agenda thing. And so since then, it's been morphed into a game. I think it was originated in India, Chattanooga, or what's it called? Chaturanga. That's what it was called originally, Chaturanga, okay? But there's this other thing called Chinese checkers, which I didn't know about it until like 3 weeks ago. One of my kids said that their dad bought this game of Chinese checkers, and then it's like a hexagram, and that's all these little balls around, and you have to get to the other side, and it's kind of the similar way of playing checkers, but you have certain moves, and your goal is to get all those circles into the other side. It's pretty interesting. I've never played it, but I'm a little intrigued, but it's pretty nice. So it helps with pattern recognition and memorization. It's kind of redundant, but I'm pretty much saying the same thing. All these little games and practical ways is helping your brain. And so I highly recommend learning a bit of this and just do a little bit of it, you know? Anyways, so now that I've talked about why we need to practice our brain, why do we need to fix our brains because of technology, and I've given you some practical ways to work out your brain, there's other ways. You don't even have to play games or puzzles. Hobbies. Oh my goodness. Whenever people say that they're too old to learn something new, my friend, my love, my darling, my dear, that's the biggest lie you could ever have, because no one's ever too old to learn something new. In fact, there's this gentleman who just now starting to learn guitar, and he's like 70 something. Like, you go for it, dude. You can do it. Because that's how we keep our synapses. Remember in the previous video when I talked about the brain? You keep your brain in top-notch condition by neuroplasticity. Rewiring your brain. And that's the other thing about technology. It's rewiring our brain to the downside. Why don't we rewire our brain to the good side? and that is by hobbies. So I named a little bit of few hobbies, puzzles, of course. Musical instruments. I remember the very first time Lewis and I got out of the friend zone. He actually is a really good guitar player, and that's how I kind of just got into him, because he started to teach me guitar. He taught me how to play guitar, and then I broke his guitar, and then it got messed up. And then I stopped learning guitar. But we ended up getting married. But, you know, musical instruments actually help you recognize that creativity in you. We just now got a piano, and the kids love to play it all the time. And I got a harp this year, and I learned how to play Hallelujah, but that's about it. But I'm still learning. You know, the fact is that we're always going to be learning. It's just, are you willing to take that risk to learn something new? You know, it strengthens connections between brain regions, and it's cognitive abilities, and reduces stress. You want to reduce stress? Learn to play an instrument. Piano, guitar, harp, what name you, the ukulele, whatever it is. Pick up an instrument and start learning. It's never too late to learn, okay? Anyone can do it. You can do it. I believe in you. You can do it. Even the dogs are cheering for you. They're like, woohoo, you got this. So learning a new language helps you rewire your brain. You know, you're using both sides of the brain. Again, I say it's never too late. Yes, it's easier whenever you're younger. I regret not being intentional about teaching my son James Spanish, although my friends would always say, oh my gosh, Marlene, you need to teach him Spanish. And I feel like I did, but then I didn't, and I kind of lost it. Lily's the one that knows more Spanish than he does, but whenever they go to my mom's house, they're always speaking Spanish. But he understands it. But the point here is that their kids are literally, their brains are sponges. That is prime time to give them a new language, whatever it is. Duolingo, maybe like a YouTube video of just language, you know, intentionally, of course. But it's never too late, you know. I'm very, very fortunate and blessed that my parents put me in bilingual classes, and I got to pick up Spanish and English. But with the Spanish and the Latin roots, I got to get into French and a little bit of Portuguese. But it's all about acquiring these new skills, not only for your own benefit, but also to communicate with the world out there and share the gospel in different languages. That's the beauty of it. You know, if there's something that you're passionate about, you can speak passionately about it with someone else, with a different language and a different outlook. And that's the beauty of learning a new language. I think I challenge you to do that, because you're never gonna, even if it's just basic skills, you can do it, okay? Okay, so another hobby that I recommend is creative arts. That can be painting, woodwork, theater, dancing, pottery. I've just now started getting into pottery, and it's actually pretty fun. You know, whenever you move things around on the spinning thing, I've only done it a few times, but I got to make quite a few pots, and I highly recommend it. It can get a little messy, but I think it's pretty cool whenever you create something that you can keep and put your plants in. And you know, there's a lot of pottery classes out there that you can go into, so I highly recommend that. Another thing with creative arts is like dancing. A lot of people like to dance. Ballet, theater, baking, cooking, I don't know, maybe even knitting, crochet, anything like that makes you tap into your creativity. It's an amazing thing to do for your brain, because you're reaching some regions in your brain. You know, the whole point of this is to activate all parts of your brain, because whenever you're on your phone or doom scrolling or just doing these things technology based, you're using just one part of your brain and diminishing the rest. You want to activate everything, and whenever you do these creative arts, it activates everything, and it releases all these chemicals of serotonin to make you happy. And that's the beauty of it, you know. Even more so, if you do it for the glory of God, then that's the beauty of using your gift. It is a gift. Use your gifts, your God-given gifts, to give back. So, creative arts, go for it. Hobbies, do it. Another one, physical activity. You go for a run, you release those endorphins. You go for a hike. Oh, you release those endorphins. You rock climb, you lift, you swim, you, I don't know, bike. Anything that requires you to physically move your body does tremendous for your brain, because not only are you doing things for your health, you're stewarding your temple, and you're also releasing these chemicals that help your brain calm down and get your mind off of things that are stressing you out. So yeah, go for it. I highly recommend that. A lot of benefits to physical activity. All right, so just saying, and married couples, you know what I'm talking about too. So just do it. Anyways, yeah. Got too hot there. On the serious side though, honestly, you want to be active and you want to be creative, and so once you put those together, then go for it. Yeah, goodness. Reading and writing. I love to read. A lot of people like to read. Reading benefits you not only because you're acquiring new vocabulary, but it's uses imagination, and also you get to dive into other people's minds, the author's minds, and how they portray things. And so I think there's a beauty in looking into someone else's mind and creativity, and that comes with reading. Also writing. I love to write, and in fact, whenever you have so much on your mind, there is a scientific fact that whenever you write things down, your brain processes it as finished. So journaling and writing stuff down is actually really good for you. It reduces stress, and it gives you that productivity kind of thing that, like, okay, it's in my brain now, it's on paper, I'm done, it's out of my mind. And so I highly recommend that. Personally, I do. And then of course, learning. There's nothing wrong with learning. Create those synapses. And again, I go to Richard Feynman. He said, if you want to master something, teach it. There's a reason why I make these videos. It's not just like, just because Marlene's like, she wants all the attention and she likes to make videos. Like, no, it's actually, this is therapeutic for me. This sunset, the grass, the cicadas, everything, not the mosquitoes and the heat, but still, even just speaking it out loud, it's kind of like, it's enforcing my brain to learn these things. And I do this a lot. You ask my kids, I speak to myself a lot, but it's only because I want to hear my thoughts, and I want to hear what I learned out loud. And that's the beauty of teaching. Whenever you teach something, if you want to master something, teach it. And another quote from Einstein, he said, if you can't explain it in simple terms, you don't understand it enough. And I abide by that, because if I don't understand it enough and someone else is not getting it, then I'm doing a bad job. And so I'm always trying to find ways for someone else to understand it in simple terms, you know? Yes, sometimes I can speak too much, but making it brief also makes a point. So yeah, all in all, this is what can help your brain. This is how we fix our brains. We fix our brains by doing all these hobbies. We fix our brains by doing these puzzles, and we also fix our brains by being cognizant of the repercussions of using too much AI, using too much technology, and just using too much that won't help us with our minds, if that makes sense, you know? So, well, I hope this video helped you have a bigger picture of how we can be more aware, self-aware of our minds and technology, and just, you know, just practical ways to help our minds, help our brain. Okay? And I hope you enjoy the sunset. You know, now it's dusk. Yeah. This is it. I hope it was good enough for you, because I was supposed to do a last minute. Anyway, that's that. I hope that helped you. Anyways, have a great day.